I have been rejected. If you're submitting your content to stock sites, chances are that you will be too. It sucks. It's not nice, it's not fun. Nobody likes being rejected. So, let's have a look at the most common reasons why stock photos are being rejected, so we can avoid being rejected in the future. So let's start with the most common reason for rejection: missing or incorrect model releases. Right, so this picture here you have a young lady taking a picture of a senior man sitting on a log in the woods. He's out of focus. Some might say he's not recognizable. The lady is shot from behind. You can't see her face. Who do you need a model release for? Both. You need a model release for both, because they would be able to recognize themselves. How about this one? Who do you need a model release for? The answer is just the women in the foreground, because the people in the background, they are unrecognizable in the sense that they wouldn't be able to recognize themselves if they saw this picture, whereas the women in the foreground would. How about this picture? What kind of release do you need? Well, you need a model release for the man, but you also need a property release for these slides that he's looking at. Like if we zoom in, you can see that they're quite clearly visible. So this is considered intellectual property, artwork. You need a model release for that. Sorry, you need a property release for that. Right, how about this one? You need a model release, of course. What else? You need a property release for the tattoo. You would need a property release from the tattoo artist. That could be quite hard to obtain sometimes. When somebody goes to get a tattoo, they're not going to ask the tattoo artist if they can please sign a property release. Cows. So do you need a release for this picture? No, you do not. You can see that this cow on the right is wearing a tag. Zoomed in too much there. He's wearing a tag in his ear right here, but it's not legible. If that tag was legible, you'd need a release. I believe that originally, like this photo has been edited, I believe that the big cow in the front here, he had a tag in his ear, but I photoshopped that out. Yeah, that's right. Animals are considered property. You don't always need a property release for animals. If you take pictures of your pet, that's fine. As a general rule, you'd only need a property release if the animal is involved in some kind of economic activity. So these cows, for instance, they're tagged and they would be recognizable by the owner if you saw the picture. Say for example, if you took a picture of a dog at a dog show, chances are you'd be asked to provide a release for that image. But if you just took a picture of your dog frolicking around in your backyard, that would be alright to upload that without a release. Okay, bonus picture. So this one, of course you'd need a model release, but also because it contains semi-nudity, most agencies would ask you to provide a copy of the model's photo ID to prove that the model is in fact 18 years or older. Right, so why are missing or incorrect model releases one of the most common reasons for rejection? Well, because the implications of getting the model release wrong is a lot greater than for like some kind of technical reason. Well, say for example, you submit an out of focus shot and it's accepted. What's the worst thing that could happen? Someone might buy it, they'll look at it, and they'll realize that, oh, this is out of focus, I don't want this. And they'll ask for their money back. That's the worst case scenario of an out of focus shot being sold on the stock site. On the other hand, if a photo is being sold with an incorrect model release or missing model release, people could get sued. There could be serious financial ramifications for all parties involved, except for the stock agency, of course. Like they've covered their asses. If you submit an image with an incorrect model release and the buyer of the image uses it and the buyer is somehow challenged by the people featured in the photo, you're the one who's going to get in trouble, not the stock agency. So be sure to always upload the correct model and property releases. On to the next one. Right, so if you look at this image, everything is good except for the composition. You can see the woman's hands up here, it just looks a bit weird, they're quite distracting. But this is an easy fix. All we have to do is remove her hands like this. This would be fine now. You wouldn't get a rejection for poor cropping. So poor focus is another reason for rejection that's very common. So if you look at this picture from well, at first glance it probably might look fine. But if we zoom in, you can see that the focus is on the hair of my chinny chin chin here. Reviewers would not like that. If you take pictures of people, they want to see the focus being on the eye, which is out of focus here, as you can see. So this would be a rejection. This image here, that would be rejected as well. So it's not technically out of focus the same way as the previous image. You can see his hair here is looking pretty sharp, but his face is slightly blurry, and this would be due to motion blur from using a shutter speed that's too slow for the situation, and that would be a rejection as well. You can see in the spoon here as well, there's a bit of a purple fringe. That's a rejection reason as well in its own right, chromatic aberration. It's pretty easy to remove though, it's just a one-click fix. So this image here looks fine, but if we zoom in, you can see lots of kind of tiny artifacts in the shadow areas of the image, in the dark areas. So this image was shot in a location that was too dark for the camera to handle with the settings used. The shadows have been boosted a bit to bring back detail, but that's introduced a lot of noise and grain. Some agencies might accept this particular image, but I think quite a few would reject it for camera noise. So here we have a black and white image. Oh yeah, you can submit black and white images as stock, in case you're wondering. I never actually do that myself because I'm not sure what the commercial appeal is, but I've just chosen this image to illustrate dust. You can clearly see here that there are lots of dust mark spots in the sky here. A few more here, they're a little bit more difficult to see. Loads over here. So this sensor definitely needs a clean. That's the only way to fix that, really. Sorry, that's the only way to prevent this. To fix it, you need to get your spot removal tool. In Lightroom, you just hit Q on your keyboard, and you basically have to just select every single spot in your image, which could take a very long time. So yeah, clean your sensor. A good way of checking to see if there's dust in your sensor is by taking a picture of a plain white object. It could just be a white wall, a white piece of paper with a high F number, like F16, F22, something like that. And that should reveal any dust in your sensor. Okay, so poor exposure will be a rejection reason. Overexposed, underexposed images. So this image is clearly overexposed, but depending on the dynamic range of your camera, it is sometimes possible to fix it. This one, for example. If we just play around with the sliders here, lower the exposure, bring down the highlights a bit. There you go. This would probably be acceptable now, except if we zoom in here, you can see that this area here on the boy's leg is still kind of blown out. The highlights on here are still quite blown. Some agencies might accept this, some might not. How about this one? So this one's overexposed as well. Can we fix it? Doesn't really look like it. See, we're not able to bring back any detail in the sky. it's super overexposed. The water here is overexposed as well. And the lighting on our model, on the subject here, is pretty bad as well. He's poorly lit. Okay, so here we have an image that is underexposed. Can that be fixed? So here the exposure is looking good, but now the sky is blown out. Let's see if we can lower the highlights. Yes we can. We're able to bring back detail and color to the sky behind him. There you go. This would be acceptable. Of course there's a logo on his sleeve here. That would have to be removed. But if we're looking only at the exposure and the lighting of the image, then this is good to go. This wouldn't be rejected for poor exposure. Poor lighting. So that's slightly different from poor exposure. If we look at this image, that would probably be rejected for poor lighting. There's nothing wrong with the exposure. The shadows and highlights are quite even. You can see details in the shadow. You can see details in the highlights. In fact, you can see too much detail in the shadows. You can see that the model is sitting in front of a black curtain, and you can see the creases in the curtain. Like usually when you take a shot like this in front of a black curtain, it's with the intention of making the background look entirely black, seamless black. But that didn't happen in this case because the lighting is really flat. The lighting is flat and boring. So this is the kind of result you'd usually get using on-camera flash. Agencies don't like that. It just gives your image a very kind of amateurish, snapshotty look. So if using artificial light, always light from the side. Never light your subject directly using on-camera flash. So again, this is a really easy fix if you shot in RAW. This is an outdoor shot. It's shot in daylight, but the white balance here is a bit too warm, too greenish. So the preset for the white balance here is actually set to flash. This was shot outside in the daylight. So let's see what happens if we turn on daylight. A bit too yellow. How about as shot, the way I shot it? Yeah, that looks pretty accurate. True to life, I think. So this would not be rejected for incorrect white balance now. So Moire is this weird greenish, yellowish, bluish discoloration you get on clothes with stripes, especially. So like these shorts on that my son is wearing here. In most cases, it's an easy fix. In Capture One, all I'd do is I'd add a adjustment layer and select the Moire, and I'd go to my Moire panel here. Amount of Moire. It's not disappearing. Okay, so in this case I'd have to actually crank it all the way up, and there's still a little bit of it visible here. So to some reviewers this might be acceptable, to some it might not. It's a massive improvement on the original image though. That would not have been acceptable. So if we have a look at this image again that we looked at earlier, you can see that it's been filtered a bit. It looks kind of pinkish. It's a stylistic choice. And as it is, that's fine. But if we really took it to extremes, let's say we cranked up the saturation as well. Maybe it's a bit too much. Cranked up the shadows. Maybe added loads of clarity. There. This would be a rejection for over-filtering. So making stylistic kind of adjustments, putting your own spin on an image is acceptable, of course, but this is just too much. This would be rejected. No commercial value. So this is one of the first pictures I ever shot and submitted as stock. I'm not entirely sure what I was trying to say here. I think it was like an anti-smoking concept or something like that. So this was rejected by a lot of agencies for having no commercial appeal. In other words, reviewers would look at this and think, what the hell are we going to do with this? Stock photography is a business. You want to to sell images. The agencies want to sell images, so they're not gonna accept images that they think no one is going to buy. This was accepted by 1 or 2 agencies though, but I've never actually sold any copies of it. Alright, and those were the most common reasons for stock photos being rejected. The most common ones I could think of anyway. If I missed any, or if you have had their images rejected for some kind of weird, stupid reason no one's ever heard about, please let me know. It seems like stock agencies are always like thinking of fun, new, exciting ways of rejecting photos. So let's hear about it. Alright, until next time. Ta-ta!